Alexander Usyk will not be defending the title against Joseph Parker in the very, very near future, not this year. And Joseph Parker looks like he'll be lining up a fight October 25th against Fabio Wardley. Fabio Wardley. And of course, there's a little speculation about Usyk. He was seen dancing, I believe, on Ukrainian television, but can't quite make his title defense in the time frame the WBO wanted right away because of an apparent injury. But then I believe someone out of the WBO, forgive me, audience, spoke about it and kind of questioned the legitimacy of Usyk's injury after seeing him dance on there and everything. I just got to say, Usyk, who we've given flowers to on this channel deservedly a lot over the last 12 months. Usyk's the best fighter in the world pound for pound. Usyk is the undisputed heavyweight king of boxing. He is an all-time great fighter and still fighting as good as he's ever fought as he continues to evolve into a better and better heavyweight. But that being said, I think people sometimes will project infallibility on a fighter like Usyk because he's the stoic Eastern European, Ukrainian at the time of war of all times, and basically thinking that this dude would never pull any of the shenanigans that fighters do in the United States or anything because he's a stoic, God-fearing, Slavic kind of archetype man. And I would remind the audience he's still a man, because when he got caught up at an airport about a year ago, everyone immediately took his word for it, that it was some misunderstanding. And I remember thinking to myself, look, he's human. I wouldn't be surprised if he was partying and was a little messed up, and that's why he couldn't get allowed on the plane. But we will never know. Now it's here, and everyone's going to give Usyk the benefit of the doubt, which I understand. But I don't think it's out of the question that he's just not that keen on fighting Joseph Parker. Not that he won't beat him, but because I think he would. But it is a very competitive, it's one of the toughest fights out there for him. But what do you think, Raheem?
He's playing the game. He's playing the game. And because Usyk is so revered, he puts his religion so out front. He don't understand half of what he's saying because it's broken English if you're only English-speaking person. And he's a real affable guy. I like him. His personality is great, and he does nothing but win. So people want to ascribe to him these character values and this infallibility that simply doesn't exist in any human. And he is not interested in fighting anybody right now. Now, you can make the case that he deserves a rest. Certainly, he's been in tough. He's been inconsistent. And he's not the youngest heavyweight out there by a long shot. So he needs some recovery time. I can accept that. I can respect that. He also doesn't want to relinquish any of these world titles based on mandatory obligations. So what does he do? He finds the loophole that is not an uncommon one for fighters to use if they're all going to be honest, and takes advantage of his situation. Where I part company with people who want to blindly believe the obvious trick in spite of what's right in front of their face is that everybody plays the system to their advantage. He's not above that. When Don Charles suggested that he was a cheater and a liar and challenged his faith because he felt like he was, milking it with the low blow or body shot, depending on how you look at it. Well, where I came down on that was that whether or not the shot was low or a body shot, the referee called it a low blow, and he absolutely milked it to the best of his advantage to get as much recovery time as possible, regardless of whether the shot was legal or not. He had an opportunity here to give himself a better chance to recover, and he did that. I don't believe if the ref would have started counting that it would have taken him that long to get up and fight on, and maybe still knocked or stopped Dubois. Not saying it wouldn't have came out the same way, but he would have got up faster and been able to carry on immediately if the fight was on the line. In this case, he knows he needs a break, and that is not a sufficient excuse to not defend your titles against your mandatory. So I need a recovery exception for an injury that may be existing, but not as nearly as prominent or debilitating as you have to suggest to get that permission. That's all that's happening here. And the problem really is that he forgot that people are watching. He's out in the world, doing his thing. It's like the Super Bowl athlete that parties on Super Bowl week at the club. You're like, oh fuck, I forgot. It's Super Bowl week. I'm not supposed to be at the club, even though I kick it at the club before most games. It is the appearance that is really the problem, not so much the decision to take this break, unless you're a purist by the letter of the law rules person. I can appreciate that. However, you've got to be living a frustrated life if you're expecting every boxer to go by the letter of the law, and even in the commission to, you know what I mean? Like, there's so many loopholes in boxing. He's just taking advantage of one of them. This is where you make a guy kind of come outside of his character, because if he has to come out and defend that and pretend like he's still laid up from an injury and recovering in a way that he can't move like we just saw him move, that's when the shit is going to get ridiculous. That is when it's going to start to sound silly, him having to say that.
Yeah, and again, it touches on a theme I go on a lot on the channel about not letting your fandom cross over into unhealthy false idol worship. So if you're a big Usyk fan, embrace what we're saying right now. The man's the undisputed heavyweight king. He's not doing something egregious that other great fighters wouldn't do in his position. It's just that he just remember, the man is a man. All right. He is still a man who would do something like that to gain himself a rest he deserves. He's been fighting the top of the division, and he deserves a rest too, because there's nowhere to hide between Parker, Caballel, and even Itauma, as green as he is, because he's so talented, that those are all tough fights for him. Caballel with the body punching, Parker being able to match him challenge him in areas that the bigger heavyweights he's been taking care of business with haven't been able to challenge him in, and then Itauma being Itauma, let him catch his breath before he returns. Because honestly, if I was Alexander Usyk, I could never be that because I'm me and he's him. But if I was, I would just want to retire. But that's what makes they would say, well, that's what makes you you, and that's what makes him him. I know, I get it, I understand. But point being, he's done everything. He's undisputed twice, undisputed cruiserweight, gold medal. Like, there's really nothing else left to do but lose.
Now, let me take the other side of this argument sincerely. While this is not how I feel about this specific situation, let me say it again. This is not how I feel about this specific situation, but this particular argument, in even this situation, I can appreciate and holds merit. There are a line of talented, worthy, deserving heavyweights waiting to challenge for the World Heavyweight Championship of the world in multiple WBO, WBC, WBA, IBF. These guys have their shot lined up in multiple sanctioning bodies, and they deserve to get their shot in the order in which they are in line. And if you're going to defend titles one at a time, the guy on the back end, which I believe is the IBF now, that guy's already waiting 2 years. If you are going to defend your mandatories one after the next, you're probably still 2 years away from your shot and have to maintain your status as the number one contender for all that time to get your shot. So is it fair that Usyk take an extra 6 months? Is it fair that if he isn't actually injured, that he makes the entire heavyweight division wait? Or if you need a rest, well, part of the difficulty of being undisputed is having to fight these mandatories on schedule, then relinquish the title.
Right.
And win it back after your rest time. That's a legitimate criticism. And it's fair to say that to some degree, doing anything but that tarnishes a little bit your defense of the undisputed title if you're playing games with the timetable on which people deserve their shot. And then on top of that, if Wardley is successful, if Parker gets cut, if Parker ends up not, for some reason or another, because of this Wardley fight, not getting his shot, I mean, how unfair is that to Parker? And then to my question to you, Sean, that one being the first, the second is, if you're Parker, do you wait this dancing injury out, or do you take the Wardley fight?
I think most people and most fighters would wait to get the lucrative undisputed heavyweight title fight for millions of dollars. But Parker is being the guy as of late, the last couple years, following the letter to the law that you're talking about. Parker, and I'm happy to see Parker get a lot of credit from this in the boxing world, is getting a lot of love deservedly right now from the fans as being exemplary, as how a fighter should move. He's already knocked off two top 10 heavyweights when he fought them, two of the biggest punchers, Zhang and Wilder, and then he beats Bacoli. Yeah, Bacoli came in out of shape and everything, but Bacoli his stock was at an all-time high. Point being, he's already went through a couple of big names and has done enough to earn his shot. Everybody agrees he's done enough to earn his shot against Usyk. Everyone's in agreement. And what does Parker do? Not one single interview or tweet complaining about it. He just signs up for another top 10 heavyweight fight. Joe Parker is a guy I covered heading into the Andy Ruiz fight. He's a great guy, really a great guy. I'm sure you know that as well as I do, covering him overseas. I just want to salute him for it. But to answer your question, yeah, most people would, at this point, stop taking dangerous fights because Wardley is a dangerous fight that I think he'll win. I think Parker beats Wardley. But, I mean, what's the right phrase for this, Raheem? He's not your like a man's man. What's the man's equivalent cliche phrase we could use to describe?
Well, this is what I like for Parker. Always the bridesmaid, never the bride. He's been walked down the aisle multiple times, but when it comes time for somebody to say I do, they don't. This is what you saw from the career of Dillian White. He was the WBC mandatory for ages. And he did what he had to do, and he waited, and he got
never fought Wilder. That's right.
That's never right. Happened. And now look what happened. Look what happened. Now, I'm not saying that maybe Moses Atama doesn't beat him anyway if he had gotten his
steroid test in there or two that messed up his. I don't know. That was a minute ago. Yeah.
But along the way, maybe he's now going to have to do some things outside the rules just to stay in position to be the number one contender. Again, one bad turn doesn't justify another, but this is how dominoes start falling. Oh, well, if this guy is going to fake an injury, then maybe I got to take a little supplement so I can stay in shape and stay lean and be ready, or so I can win this interim fight and not lose my spot. You start justifying all kind of things or rationalizing all kind of things when you see yourself not being treated fairly. Then why are you going to play the game fairly if nobody else is? And to your point, Parker seems to be the exemplary by the letter of the law, no complaining, just take what's in front of you. He took Bacoli, now he's going with Wardley, he still doesn't get his shot, and he absolutely deserves it. As we saw in the comments, a lion's share of the audience believes that it should and absolutely has to be Parker next if there's justice in the world. And this fight with Wardley does not at all guarantee Parker the next shot. Anything, it puts it in jeopardy.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, I could see the Wardley fight being a classic, like a real battle, and then them making a rematch, and then Usyk coming back and fighting somebody else while this rematch is on. Like, any of these things are possible, and any time that you mess around with getting an opportunity to fight for undisputed, the boxing gods tend to have a sense of humor. Ask Deontay Wilder and Anthony Joshua.
Do you think I don't know, it's just a thought I have as we're talking about it. Do you think the powers that be don't want Parker to be heavyweight champion? Is that a play at all? They don't, Ward, he's not a Brit. He's not, yeah.
It's deeper than that, Sean. It doesn't matter that he's not a Brit. It's not a ticket
he doesn't sell,
Exactly. I mean,
not like they
not
do.
A box office draw. He's not going to pay those sanctioning fees that fighters that get bigger purses are going to be able to pay.
Yeah.
And
he'll sell out New Zealand.
Yeah. I mean, when was the last fight you covered in New Zealand?
Wow.
Right?
It might have been playing in an arena in Fight Night Round 3 where the Burger King guy was the ring card girl. Go on.
Exactly. We can't not acknowledge that that's a part of how people get title shots and get put ahead of other people in rankings and not get passed over for the big opportunity, is whether or not these sanctioning bodies can get big money if you end up being a title holder.
Right.
Man, I feel for Parker. I respect the way he's handling this, but the question has to be asked, and it is not disrespectful of or even accusatory of Alexander Usyk to ask these questions and believe your eyes. Don't sit there and be such a fanboy, such a stan, you can't
I mean, I'm
believe your
not a
lying
doctor,
eyes.
but his back looks pretty good.
I mean, at very minimum, you're going to have to explain just how debilitated you are. Well, okay,
You
maybe
look like John Travolta out there, Raheem.
yeah. How long from the point of that dance routine is it going to take for you to be 100% to fight? And again, if you can fight and just need a rest, which is really what his explanation is publicly, like that's really what the team is saying, and they're going to have to say something else to the sanctioning body so that they can meet the standard. But the reality is they're expecting and relying on the audience and the fans to be like, yeah, okay, we get it. You deserve a rest. Say what you got to say. That's what they're expecting. You just cannot overlook the guys in line that deserve the shot on the schedule that is dictated by mandatories. And if you cannot keep to the mandatory schedule legitimately, I think it is fair to say, well, that's why it's so difficult to be undisputed.
Nobody's
Let
saying
the
it's not
title go
demanding. Right.
like he did with Dubois. And when you come back, fight for whoever has it then and be 3-time undisputed heavyweight champion. There's your payoff. You know what, Sean? I think I just convinced myself.
Yeah.
I started by saying this is not my opinion. It's my opinion now. I just convinced myself. That's
No,
a damn.
I followed
that's
along.
exactly
You fleshed
how
it out.
should be.
I was here for the stream of conscious as you fleshed it out. It made sense. It did. I'm biased though. I'm your co-host, but it made sense.
What's wrong? And now I'm right.
Yeah. No, I think no. What you broke down would highlight and bring real weight to why it would be so difficult to be undisputed champion in today's era. No, you're actually breaking down, if we really follow the rules of the sport and the sanctioning bodies, why it's such a challenging task, why it would hold weight if guarded properly, really, so
right. Attaining it is one thing. Like any world champion will tell you, the hardest thing in boxing is to win a world title. Until you win a world title, the hardest thing then becomes keeping it. Being undisputed, becoming undisputed is one thing, but how many fighters, greats, legends, Hall of Famers for sure, who deserve their credit, became undisputed and immediately vacated or immediately left the division? Didn't even try to defend undisputed.
I think that's why, in one part, I love Bernard so much, is his whole moniker, his whole thing for the longest times. I'm the undisputed middleweight champion. 20 title defense, broke Marvin Hagler's record. It's huge. I think Leonard and Hearns and Duran, and then later on De La Hoya and Mayweather, and now Crawford, and the reigning went out of style a little bit. And it became all about, cool, like mission accomplished. I got the belt, time to go to the next weight class, the next weight class. And so to your point, reigning is not common. It's not a thing in modern boxing, really. Canelo's done it at super middleweight, to his credit, but even then, a couple of jumps at 75, and yeah.
When Michael Buffer introduces
and he didn't defend it against Benavidez, but yeah, go.
When Michael Buffer introduces you, when he says reigning, I still get goosebumps. It's reigning before defending. That's a huge thing to be doing, to reign as champion.
Oh, he used to say about Hopkins
as king.
He has reigned as the middleweight king for over a decade. And I used to be like,
what's that, bro? That's a thing. It should remain
at 160. I don't know what's going on at 147, 175, but at 160.
Yeah, in a four-belt era. You want that four-belt reigning credit? That is very, very, very rarefied air. In fact, thus far, as heavyweights go in the four-belt era, there really hasn't been a reigning, undisputed heavyweight champion.
Yeah,
Usyk hasn't accomplished that. Maybe that is the next milestone if you want to be driven to another goal or another benchmark or making more history.
Itama's the guy that could do it potentially because he can't move up a weight class. So,
can he collect all those belts? And part of the difficulty with reigning, I'm not suggesting that it's the only difficulty is winning the fights. The other difficulty is waiting on the big paydays when these sanctioning bodies have their own little level of corruption and some guy becomes the number one slot contender who shouldn't be, that now you have to fight him or relinquish the title, and that's not a money fight. The guy isn't a ticket seller. You got a big fight that you could have with multi-million dollars, or you could defend your title and put that big money fight off that might not happen if you take this fight now. That's a difficult decision for an athlete to make when there's a lot of fucking money on the table and these sanctioning bodies are putting guys in front of you that may not really deserve to be number one. That happens. And again, you start to rationalize with yourself, well, the sanctioning body is going to play games. Why shouldn't I?
Yeah. No doubt. Some of the, So and again, to be fair to these guys, Joe Louis didn't have 4 mandatories when he defended the title 25 times. But Larry and Mike had 3 mandatories. They only had 1 less than you got now, and they still reigned for a long time. Well, Mike had 9 title defenses in a short. Anyway, they reigned.
Yeah. There's no anyway. You're exactly right, man. Yeah. That is not only worthy of mention, it is worthy of honor and respect. That it just as we're having this conversation, it just demonstrates how difficult that actually is. And to your point, people don't talk about it. It's not in fashion the way it used to be. It's not something that is a talking point, and it should be. I'd like to see Usyk reign. If that's how he's going to continue as heavyweight champion, I would consider that yet another milestone in the 4-belt era.
The reigning stuff, I don't know how much I expect out of Usyk at 38. You know what I mean? But we'll see. By the way, just go ahead.
When you say out of 38, but so the thing would be to retire undisputed, to reign until you retire. I guess if he only has 1 more fight, which is what he said, it might be a short reign. But if that's the case, I don't know, bro. To be undisputed and retire undisputed, then maybe you got to have 2 more fights because you got to give somebody else a shot at their vacated title if you're not willing to defend it on schedule. That is part of the job of being undisputed. Let's see what happens. Hopefully he's back sooner than later as this incident has kind of pulled his card.
Yeah, speaking of undisputed champions with injuries that are keeping them out of their next fight, Bivol, I see Bivol, a lot of people feel his injury was validated because he shared a video recently and everybody's commenting looks like he's 20 pounds lighter than he usually is. I don't know, just quick thoughts on that. We don't have to make a whole take on it, but.
Yeah, I mean, there you go. Look at that image next to Usyk's image. Guys do get injured. Guys do legitimately need a medical recovery time. You need a permission to do that. And how busy Bivol was and how difficult and dangerous and punishing those 24 rounds that he just fought was, he deserves, whether he's injured or not, in my guard, the same kind of rest that Usyk deserves. But is it based on an injury?
But he got stripped, to your point.
Right?
Like, he actually got stripped, to your point. Like, he's actually dealing with the consequences of his layoff that Usyk hasn't yet had to deal with.
Right. And he does. I mean, if you think Usyk deserves a rest, you can't tell me Bivol doesn't deserve a rest. However, the letter of the law applied to Bivol. At this point, it doesn't appear to be applying to Usyk. I'm no medical doctor. I haven't seen any x-rays. I've not had any kind of information off the record from any of his physicians. I'm just looking at what I'm looking at. And I will say that if he is injured or he was injured, it looks like recovery is speedy. And God bless. Let's get back in the ring and legitimately defend those undisputed titles. And it's got to be Parker whenever it happens. It's got to be Parker. I would be very disappointed if Parker doesn't get his shot one way or another after this Wardley fight.
In part, not just because the fight itself, but because of what Usyk stands for, and you would see that as an inconsistency in what he represents, what he's about. Yeah,
we got to be real about it. You know.